Imagine a world where women are stripped of their autonomy. Their rights are reduced to a single purpose, that is reproduction. Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale depicts dystopian society where a totalitarian regime uses religion, fear, and violence to control women's bodies and minds. But is this story purely fictional, or does it serve as a stark warning for our times? In today's world, we see alarming parallels like rising infertility rates caused by conditions like PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. There are debates about reproductive rights and the regulation of women's bodies. Atwood's vision resonates powerfully, particularly when we think about how societal control over women can manifest. Movies like Kalki also explore similar dystopian scenarios of limited reproduction. And all these makes us question if Atwood's future is closer than we think. Now, the best thing about fiction is that it is not just a story. Sometimes it feels like a mirror reflecting things that happen in our real lives. We read, we watch, and we realize that there are parts of the story we can relate to. It is not just about a fictional world. It is about emotions, it is about struggles, and it is about experiences that we see in our lives, even if we do not live in a society like Gilead, which is there in the novel. But before we delve into these comparisons, let us explore Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale in details, discussing its themes, characters, and the terrifying implications of its narrative. However, before understanding the novel, it is essential to grasp the concept of dystopia. Unlike a utopia which depicts a perfect world, dystopias are dark visions of societies, and these are plagued by oppression, fear, and dehumanization. Margaret Atwood envisioned such a dystopia in The Handmaid's Tale. She creates the Republic of Gilead, which is a theocratic dictatorship that rose to power in what was once the United States. But it is crucial to understand the world Atwood has created in the novel. The novel is set in the Republic of Gilead, a totalitarian and theocratic regime that has replaced the United States. This dystopian society is governed by strict religious laws and extreme patriarchy. Due to environmental degradation and widespread infertility, Gilead enforces a rigid social structure where women are stripped of their autonomy and categorized into roles based solely on their usefulness to society. And in this category, the first one is the handmaids. They are fertile women who are forced to bear children for their elite class. They are named after the commanders they serve, losing their original identities. For example, the handmaid of Fred means she belongs to the commander Fred. Now there are the wives, the upper class women who are married to the commanders. Though they have higher status, they are also oppressed by the system. Then there are Marthas, women assigned to domestic tasks like cooking and cleaning. Then there are aunts, women responsible for training and indoctrinating handmaids. They enforce the regime's rules and punish disobedience. They act like the female guardians. Then there are unwomen, those who are considered worthless to the regime, that is, the infertile women, the rebels, or those who refuse to conform to the system, and they are sent to the toxic colonies where they eventually die. Now you need to know, why did Margaret Atwood write this novel in the first place? Atwood wrote the novel in 1985 as a response to real-world events and trends she observed. The novel reflects her concerns about the rise of religious extremism, the erosion of women's rights, and environmental crisis. She stated that everything in the novel is based on historical events or practices. She wanted to explore what could happen if these oppressive ideologies were allowed to take hold. Now you need to know how Gilead's government works. It uses religion as a tool to justify its oppression and maintain control. Biblical texts are twisted to enforce patriarchal dominance and justify the subjugation of women. Surveillance is omnipresent and fear is used to ensure obedience. Public executions known as salvagings and ceremonies like the participations where handmaids are forced to kill enemies of the state serve to intimidate and control the population. Now let's discuss the summary of the novel. The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian novel that takes place in the Republic of Gilead, which is a totalitarian society in what was once the United States. The novel is set in a future world where a theocratic government has taken over the United States and renamed it the Republic of Gilead. Now, Gilead is ruled by a strict religious regime that has taken control after a violent coup. The government enforces extreme gender roles and severely oppresses women. This story is told by Offred, a handmaid, and her sole purpose is to bear children for the elite ruling class. In Gilead, fertility has become rare due to pollution and disease, so fertile women like Offred are forced to serve as handmaids. These handmaids live under strict rules. They wear red robes. They are forbidden to read, write, or make choices for themselves. Offred remembers her life before Gilead, when she was free, had a job, and lived with her husband Luke and their daughter. However, when Gilead rose to power, her family tried to escape but was captured. Offred was separated from her family and trained to be a handmaid at a brutal facility run by aunts who enforce Gilead's rules. Offred is assigned to a commander named Fred and his wife Serena Joy. Her name Offred means of Fred, and this shows that she is considered a property. Her main duty is to participate in the ceremony where the commander tries to impregnate her in a ritualized act where Serena Joy watches. Offred's life is monotonous and full of fear. She shops for groceries with another handmaid, Offglen, but they must speak carefully to avoid punishment. Any rebellion or disobedience can result in torture or death. Public executions are common and bodies of criminals are displayed on the wall as a warning. Now, unexpectedly, the commander begins to break the rules by inviting Offred to secret meetings in his study. He lets her read, play Scrabble, and talk freely. These are things forbidden for women in Gilead. And Offred feels conflicted because these meetings give her some comfort, but they also blur the line between oppressor and victim. One day, the commander takes Offred to a secret club, which is called Jezebel's, where wealthy men mingle with women who are forced to work as prostitutes. There, Offred meets her old friend Moira, who had previously tried to escape Gilead but was captured and sent to Jezebel's. Moira's spirit is broken, showing how Gilead destroys even the most rebellious individuals. Then through Offglen, Offred learns about an underground resistance movement which is known as the May Day. Offglen urges Offred to gather information about the commander to help the resistance. At the same time, Serena Joy suspects the commander is infertile and she arranges for Offred to secretly sleep with Nick, who is the household chauffeur, to conceive a child. Now, Offred and Nick develop a secret relationship, and for the first time, Offred feels genuine affection and passion in Gilead. She begins to hope for a better future, even though she knows that she is risking her life. One day, Offglen disappears, and Offred learns that she took her own life to avoid being tortured by Gilead's authorities. Offred becomes more paranoid, fearing that she will be exposed as a traitor. And soon after, men from Gilead's secret police, the Eyes, arrive at the commander's house to take Offred away. However, Nick whispers to her that these men are part of the resistance and that she should trust them. But she was unsure if Nick is telling the truth. But Offred decides to go with them, hoping for freedom, but she is uncertain about her fate. Now, the novel ends with a surprising twist. It is revealed that Offred's story was recorded on cassette tapes and discovered long after Gilead fell. Scholars in the future analyze her story at a symposium, but they can only guess what happened to her. The ending is deliberately ambiguous, leaving readers to wonder if Offred escaped or met with a tragic end. So at the end, we see that the story is unreliable. We do not know whether the sequence of the events are shown correctly, because it is all the interpretation of the scholars in future who has put together Offred's story in a sequence. Now let's discuss the themes in the novel. The first one is reproductive rights and control. Atwood explores how controlling reproduction can become a tool for political power. In Gilead, women's bodies are commodified and their value is tied solely to their fertility. The second is the role of religion in oppression. Gilead uses distorted religious teachings to justify its rules, and this shows how faith can be manipulated to serve authoritarian agendas. Then there is loss of identity. Handmaids are stripped of their names, rights, and individuality, and this reflects how oppressive systems dehumanize their subjects. Then there is resistance and survival. Now, despite overwhelming oppression, characters like Offred and Moira find small ways to resist, and this demonstrates the resilience of the human spirit. Now, the story of Offred, the handmaid, is one of loss, control, and finding the strength to resist in a world where everything is stacked against you. Though we do not live in a world as extreme as Gilead, we can relate to some of the themes. For instance, the idea of having our choice taken away or feeling controlled in some way. Take a condition like PCOS, a hormonal disorder affecting many women. In Gilead, women's bodies are reduced to their reproductive functions and their worth is tied to their ability to bear children. Similarly, women with PCOS often face judgment or misunderstanding about their ability to conceive, and this makes them feel like their bodies define them in a similar way. While it is true that we are not in a world where fertility is the only thing that matters, but there is still a connection in how women's bodies are often viewed through a narrow lens, isn't it? And it is not just about fertility, it is about control. Movies like Kalki, which I have already discussed, explore dystopian features where reproduction is strictly regulated, and this raises the same fears about personal freedoms that Atwood highlights. Even in real life, we see cases where government and societies dictate what women should or should not do with their bodies, whether it is restrictive laws, forced pregnancies, or societal shame around reproductive health. And this is what makes The Handmaid's Tale so unsettling. It does not feel entirely impossible. Remember this, every dystopia starts with small, seemingly harmless changes, and before you know it, control becomes the norm. So while The Handmaid's Tale is a work of fiction, it forces us to ask, how much of this is already happening? How much of this do we already relate to? Atwood's novel is more than just a dystopian novel. It is a cautionary tale that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about power, gender, and autonomy. And by drawing parallels between Gilead and our world, Atwood reminds us that dystopias do not emerge overnight. They are built on the slow erosion of rights, the normalization of inequality, and the manipulation of fear. Therefore, the novel is a powerful reminder of how fiction often reflects our society and why it is so important to pay attention to these stories. They are not just cautionary tales, they are mirrors that shows us how much we can still relate to, whether it is the struggle for gender equality, personal freedom, or understanding our bodies and choices. So, what do you think? Can you relate to any parts of the story, or do you see connections to the struggles happening in the world today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such discussions like this. See you in the next video. Thank you.